We'll call the Monday, July 7th budget workshop to order. If you would, please stand for the invocation and pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening. We ask that you give us wisdom to make the best decisions for the city of Leesburg. In your precious name, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget workshop presentation.
I'm assuming this is on? Yep, it is. Okay, there we go. So we'll get right to it. This evening's schedule is just basically looking at the proposed budget for fiscal year 26. In it, we'll talk about a general fund summary. I'll bring you some Bike Fest data, some civic funding data, and then a by departmental recap if you all want to review that. And so all the little writing here on the screen is all the departments that comprise the general fund. So with that, let me wrap right into the budget summary. So our total general fund budget is up about 7.7%. So we increased from about $37.5 million general fund budget last year to about $40.3 million this proposed for 26, and that change is about $2.8 million. It breaks down on the revenue side to about $16 million in taxes, about $5 in licenses and permits, $1.5 in miscellaneous, $4.5 in intergovernmental, $1.8 for charges for services, fines and forfeitures, pretty small, about $500,000, and then other sources, $10.5. And I'll break those numbers down for you a little bit more here shortly. One of the things we always kind of consider, probably one of the things that I think is that we've done tremendously good work on, is getting the general fund of Leesburg to look like the typical municipal budget in the state of Florida, and that directly relates to how we've continued to reduce our reliance on enterprise fund transfer, specifically the electric fund. And as you all know, with kind of the changes in legislation, or the attempts and changes of legislation, I think that change was, I'll use the word visionary, because we started reducing it before the state legislature started trying to reduce it for you. And again, this fiscal year in 26, our budget matches you see the tick in different, this is the percentage versus dollars, but we keep the same dollar amount, a $1.6 million transfer from the electric fund into the general fund. That represents 6% of incorporated sales. So if you had an electric utility, if you didn't have an electric utility, you would rely on a franchise fee that's typically 6% of your sales in your city, incorporated sales. So what our transfer represents is that, and that's just a tick under 4% transfer. I can dive into that in more detail if you like, but I thought we'd just keep it easy. So I think that's a really significant number, because what it shows is the general fund is operating on its own per se, without significant influence other than franchise revenues. So if the state legislature continues to be aggressive in terms of controlling how you spend transfer dollars, you've already done it in the electric fund. So that's a big deal. We did this SWOT, strengths, weaknesses analysis last year. I didn't change the slide a bit, because I think it's still relevant. We're still trying to increase public safety. We still have a low millage rate, and I have some options for that I'll talk to you on this evening. We look closer and closer to a non-electric city, which I think is important, and we have good reserve levels, and I'll say I think we have extremely good reserve levels. And probably for the first time since I've been your city manager, the general fund's performing very well. I'm hesitant to say better than your enterprise funds, but because there's certain mechanisms in the general fund that if we veer away from, then those savings can be depleted extremely quickly. So the general fund's always on a precipice of danger with legislation and different impacts on it. But right now, the picture is nice. So we can absorb a couple of bumps, but we couldn't absorb anything, and I'm not going to mince words. We couldn't absorb anything crazy like doing away with ad valorem taxes. That would be a significant blow to us, and it would immediately impact public safety, bottom line. So if I ever got called to testify before the state legislature about a proposal to cut taxes, maybe that comes next year, that would be exactly what I would say. It would be devastating to us, and it would immediately affect public safety. So we'll see those numbers. And then weaknesses, again, a slower core growth, the less electric fund means higher taxes. However, we've kind of lucked out with that because we've been able to feed lower transfer with new villages growth monies. So that went away seamlessly while we were doing the budget this year. Brainy and I think you have to be a kind of a bit of a number nerd to recognize it. But really, that decrease into the franchise fee way, if you would, really that's a significant change. And that was done with villages growth. That was a big part of how we were able to bridge that gap. Again, we have no CIP investments, but I'm going to come back and visit that with you. And again, our health insurance fund is a bit crazy. We'll talk about that, I think, next 2 meetings from now, workshop-wise, but that's hanging in. So let me go now into cash as a summary. So this is our cash chart. The little yellow circles indicate your cash balance on October 1st. So that's the important date, because if you look at us right now, in May, when this was done, this was the last update, we're sitting at just a tick under $20 million. So our new reserve requirement obviously inches up as the general fund grows because it's 90 days. So when we always used to talk about $7 million-ish in the reserve fund you need to keep, that number rough house is about $8 million. So we're significantly above that. However, if you just look at the to-date chart, you see a pattern of October 1 and then a spike high. So the explanation on that is cash flow. So basically, by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, we have 95% of our ad valorem revenue. So that's why you see that number spike. And then as the fiscal year comes, it trickles down. And you see that repeat. So we are in the middle of the trickle down. So by the time October 1 comes here, we don't think that's going to be just under 20 million. We think it's probably going to hang out and finish around 17.5 million. So if you connect these yellow dots, you see an increase in your reserve. So that's a good thing, but it's also a cautious thing. I think that cash will let us do some tricky things, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But I don't think it's a windfall, and I think it could be easily spent with too many CIPs, capital improvement projects, or funding personnel. So those are going to be the tricks for us. I think there's a certain precipice where we can play with house money, if you will, a little bit, but we can't get crazy. So again, we'll talk about that as we wrap up the budget summary.
What was the available cash 10.5? Is that as of October 1st or what? Yeah, right in.
Okay, this line right here, this green line, that's an Al make believe line. The chart ends here at May 25 because that's the latest from all the budget reporting. So the finance folks do everything, then Brandy takes that and she manipulates it into this chart. So all money in, all money out as of May 25, you're sitting on about 20 million bucks. But that's not how the picture's going to end. So I threw this bar in there, and I guess that actually maybe it needed to be more here instead of here. But what I'm trying to show is about 17.5 million. That's our estimate for where we'll end fiscal year 25. But that's about $1 million, $1.5 million better than we were. If you look at look at the yellow circles. That's your better comparison, because that's how you look at the budget every year on October 1st. When you end one fiscal year and start the new page. So that's gradually gone up since 22. So that's a good number. And then historically, you know, we've kind of hung out around in this $10 million phase. So those are good things. Does that answer your question? So that's kind of overall. So now let's start drilling down into significant topics for the general fund. First is the ad valorem. So we got our numbers in as of July. So actually we went up a little bit. We sent the budget books out to you with a rollback estimate, and we had to guess at that rollback estimate, and we thought we were a little bit balanced until we got the July 1 update, and so that's where I'm going to end up with you. So we grew about $385 million this year. That's actually significantly down from last year, where we grew almost $1 billion. But again, that was villages, primarily villages growth. So our number now 11%, and that's primarily now the inverse of last year. So that's primarily commercial and residential non-villages growth in the city of Leesburg. So we see the ball moving a little bit. The trick that we have when we prepare these numbers for you is how this $3.8 million then breaks down over your 4 taxable funds. So we have the general fund, we have the Greater Leesburg CRA, we have this Carver Heights CRA, and we have the 44127 CRA. When we get these initial reports from the appraiser's office, standard operating procedures, SOP is we get the big number, and then we kind of have to weave through it until we get closer to the fiscal year on what money is going, where the growth is. In past years, what we've seen is the CRAs growing faster percentage-wise than the general fund. This year, I think, is probably the first inverse, where we see actually the general fund percentage-wise growing faster than the CRAs. That's why I'll give you the secret. Since you got your books, there's about $480,000 extra that we didn't account for, because when we did our budget estimates, we put that $485,000 into the CRAs based on history. So this year we saw it flip-flop, so there's a couple extra bucks there. We'll get there. So that's the surprise for you at the end of the presentation. So the budget book, as you see it, is balanced at the rollback rate of 3.3131. And so this slide is showing you some of the options that you have and that we need to discuss moving into the budget year. Let me tell you, as we move into, I'm not going to harp on this too much, but I want to put it out there for discussion so you have it in your head as you think about where you want to go with the fiscal year 26 budget. We will be recommending increases to you in most of your utility enterprise funds. We have a 10% increase on water and sewer rates. We're recommending a 5% on solid waste and a 3% on gas. Now, we've been keeping up with those funds in CPIs, which you've made policies that gives the city manager the authority to do that. In these budget workshops, we disclose that we're going to have a modest CPI. So that's helped us. But this year, because of inflation and just trying to keep pace, all those enterprise funds are really feeling the pinch of inflation. And I think if you don't move with an increase in those rates, we're going to see a fallback in terms of capital improvement first and then operations next. So that water mains that break even more frequently, trees that don't get trimmed. Electric fund, we're still going to recommend to you a no increase there. We will talk to you ad nauseum about that on Thursday. So you'll see as we move forward where those things hit. But general fund, you may have the ability to go to rollback if you so choose that. And what's the number that we're talking about? So when we put the budget book out, we balanced it at at the rollback rate, but we're about 70 grandish in the hole, and we can massage that number. We can get you to roll back if you go there. If you stay with current millage rate or anywhere in between, including this number, making it easy for us, you're going to have about $425,000 to do to different things. So next Monday, when we come to the regular meeting and we do the DR 420, the form that we send to the appraiser's office that sets the trim notice, we're firmly recommending to you that you keep the millage rate at 3.4752 for the purposes of the DR 420. So when all the trim notices go out, that will show a tax increase. You can always roll it back, but you can't roll it up. So if you don't set it at the 3.4752 number, and then we decide in August or late September that we want a tax increase, if you haven't advertised it, you can't do it. And the best way to advertise is jump on the trim bus. So to jump on the trim bus and keep your options open, you need to send the DR 420s out with the current millage rate. So what does that look like? Again, if you go with the current millage rate, that is a tax increase. I would say it's a modest tax increase. So based on your home value from $100,000 to $600,000, this chart kind of shows you. If you have a $100,000 home taxable value, then you're going to be paying about 10 extra bucks annually. If you have a $600,000 home, you're going to be paying $62.55 annually. That's the say if you have homestead exemption, which most houses are. So our average home is roughly in the $200,000 to $250,000 category. How do you get that number? You divide 3.4 billion by about the population, about the utility accounts that are incorporated, which is about 16,000 homes, and that number comes out to about 205,000. So the average home is, I would probably look in this range. So the average homeowner in Leesburg that's homestead exemption, if you keep your millage rate the same, it's about $25 increase on their taxes for the city of Leesburg. Let's compare that to the region. Leesburg is and continues to be one of the lowest taxing cities in Lake County. So I threw a couple extra things in this chart to show you where we're at. The only city that's below us is Mount Verde at 2.8. Mind you, these are all last year's tax numbers. I don't know where any of the cities are going to date. They're all in the same boat. Everybody hasn't shared their magic book yet. We'll know probably by the end of this month where everybody's proposal is. By August, we'll know where everybody's out because the trim notices will be out. But I wanted to give some comparisons at least where we're at. 3.313 will definitely keep us the lowest. 3.4 will probably keep us the second lowest as well. I don't see anybody dropping substantially below where they're at. And I wanted to throw the county in too, just so you can, I did put school board in there because a different kind of governmental unit. So I just wanted to compare kind of governmental general fund to general fund county unit. Not picking on the county here at all, but if you're an incorporated resident in Lake County, you're going to pay 4 millage rates to the Board of County Commissioners, which is their general fund at about 5.03 mils. You're going to pay the ambulance. Everybody pays that at 0.4629. You're going to pay the environmental land bond, which is, I think, 0.09 mils, that number. Sorry, it's really super small. And you're going to have the water authority millage at 0.29. So all in, county taxes that incorporated residents pay is 5.8 mils. So that puts you about the middle of the pack. So all in all, your tax rate for the city is the 3.4 plus the 5.8. That for general government services. So Leesburg continues to tax very modestly versus our local peers, which I think also provides some room if you want to keep the same millage rate. Now let's talk about revenue sources into the general fund. And there's 3 or 4 primary revenue sources. So we got $40 million total revenue roughly in. 83% of your money comes from 4 different sources. So some of those sources have fold down windows, if you will, but the common thing, and again, some of these sources are under the microscope at the state level. So that's something else you got to think about as we move forward. So the first one is ad valorem taxes, brings in about 10.2 million bucks. The utility tax is a significant one. It's 10% on all utilities in incorporated Leesburg. That's water and sewer and gas. That brings in 4.7 million. Whether you were or are not a municipal electric utility, you most likely have a utility tax. So that is one of the most common general municipal corporation revenue tools in the state of Florida. Franchise fees is the other. Ours is reciprocally low because most of incorporated Leesburg is Leesburg Electric. So we have the transfer versus the franchise fee. We talked about that. We do see this number on the rise. It's not rising as fast as we like. So if you spotted that in the detail of the general fund revenues, we're just not ready to push that number up yet because we're still chasing Duke a little bit. So you'll see, I think that number was like 475,000. Then our estimate for this year was 875,000, which includes the payment for back franchise fees that Duke paid to us this fiscal year. And then we went back down to 550. Our trend has been, and I hope you will continue the trend, is to budget revenues extremely conservative. And if we're extra, yay, but we're not going to miss low. So then that helps us on the expense side. And that also, that formula has also helped you fund healthy reserves. So I'm really not going to recommend changing that process. The other big tax or franchise fee is the fire assessment fee. So all of those account for about $19.9 million of your $40 million. So almost half of your general fund revenue is coming from here. That's a change in the past decade. That percentage used to be a lot smaller percentage of the general fund revenues because we were leaning on the electric fund and other transfers. So that's a good change, I think. And remember, this number assumes the rollback rate, and it includes the fire assessment fee increase from 165 to 170. So the next slide says, so I showed you where we're at with taxes. Here's where we're at with fire assessment fees. Fire assessment fees in Lake County range from 415 to 50 to 0. Claremont and Eustis are the two cities in Lake County that continue not to have a fire assessment fee, so they fund all their fire services from general revenues. Well, the fire assessment fee is considered a general revenue, but general revenue is not including a fire assessment fee. So Mineola 59, so we're towards the bottom there. But you see the variance here. The median is probably closer to 233, but you see that a lot of 415s in here. So I think increasing it the modest 3% is reasonable. Let me dive into this a little bit as well. Commissioner Cannell, I spoke to you a little bit about this last week, and there's some variance in this. And when we set the advertising fire assessment fee reso at the 170 number we talked about is the village is wagging the dog kind of issue. So the answer is kind of yes, but it's also no. There's two things that prevent us at this stage from having two different fire assessment fees. And I bring this up because if you see it occur. You see Fruitland Park, regular Fruitland Park at 415, and you see Fruitland Park Villages at 233. So let me explain why Fruitland Park can do it, but Leesburg can't. The phenomena that we have going on with us is twofold. First is the statutes. The statutes say that if you have a two-tier system, you have to justify the two-tiered system. So the statutes don't specifically say this, but the interpretation of the statute is that you have to justify the differentiation. So if you have differing fees, you have to justify why they're different, and those service levels have to pan out in a model. That's the law. The second thing that we have is we have an agreement with the villages that says we won't charge villages residents different than native Leesburg residents. So we got native Leesburg residents and we got villages residents. And that was in what we call the 163 or the Hanging Chad Agreement, where it was we did this agreement back with the villages in 18 or 19, where we laid out all the general service parameters. And in that document, it says same fee. About a week or 2 weeks after we approved that resolution, so it was recent, We got word, well, we didn't even get word, but we noticed in documents that the village's CDDs are trying to equalize all their rates. So they have 4 or 5 different rates for fire assessment fees in the villages that run from as high as $415 to as low as ours at $165, potentially going up to $170. There's 2 different fees for Lady Lake too. Okay, so where the villages is trying to go is they're trying to have all their villages, which are married over 4 or 5 cities and 2 counties, to be the same. They haven't come to us yet, but they will be. So when we started going through some of their budget documentation and some of their information from that the CDD put out, we noticed that they are working to equalize all their assessments. And I think they wanted it at the 350, 315 level or something like that. So I called Villages HQ. I said, you guys, we got an issue with this. And the issue is our agreement and statutes. So A, if you guys are wanting to equalize that, we can't unless we modify that agreement, A, and B, we have to go back to our consultant and we justify a 2-tiered system. So it's a study, a system, I don't know, it'll cost $50-100 grand. So long story short, for fiscal year 26, it's game off. There is no way that we're going to be able to have a 2-tiered system. For fiscal year 27, it's that potential. So we'll start doing our homework now, working with the villages, working with consultants. We'll be back to you during the course of the fiscal year. And probably where we'll be back is with the price tag for the consultant. So that will be coming to you, I don't know when, maybe by the end of this calendar year, but certainly in time so that as we gear up for when that resolution is before you again, I think we did that in June, we'll have this data. And it'll be, no, we ain't doing it, and we'll keep it the same or not the same or whatever. But this year, we practically, we can't do it because of the law and because of the agreement. So one shoe fits all there. I'll leave it at that unless you have any other questions. Otherwise, I keep beating that. So that's where we look like on fire assessment fees. So we're still in the discussion of your major revenues. I digress there, so let me bring you back. The other big source that we have is transfers and utility surcharges. And I broke these out differently because this is we've had kind of 3 attacks potentially. I don't know if attack is the right word, but it's the one I'm going to use. That the state legislature is looking at municipal corporations across the state. A, are they really going to start passing legislation that does away with ad valorem? Question mark. Attack number 1. Attack number 2 is these utility transfers from your enterprise funds. We've prepped our house pretty good for that. Attack number 3 is equalizing rates so that on water and sewer, which is the typical enterprise fund for municipal corporation, your inside and your outside rate have to look the same. Attack number 4 is, are they going to start going down, and they haven't gone down this route, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't feel like I'm doing my job if I don't tell you, surcharges. Don't forget, we also have surcharges. So we have taxes and surcharges. It's all legal. Folks who don't like to pay taxes and surcharges and fees are going to say it's double taxation. You can have all those arguments, but right now it's legal. I suspect that as we become more conservative, that these other revenue sources will get the state legislative microscope. Okay, so with that being said, our transfer levels are within where the state has been pushing municipal corporations to. Our electric fund transfer, look at that, our electric fund transfer is almost the same as the wastewater transfer. I think that's really cool. Okay, so 1.6 from electric and transfers, and that represented about a little under 4%. We have a 10% transfer on the rest. So gas is kicking in $1 million, that's a surplus revenue. Water's kicking in just a tick under $1 million. Wastewater's kicking in about 1.2, and solid waste is kicking in $500,000. $5.27 million in transfers, and that number's down, so that's a good thing. Surcharges is kind of the one, where do we go? So the definition of a surcharge has been, if you are in unincorporated lake, the city has the right to put a surcharge on you. So instead of a utility tax, like here, the 4.7 million, so if you're incorporated, we can tax you. If you're unincorporated, we surcharge you 10%. It's not a tax, it's a surcharge. Okay, so we bring in $2 million of unincorporated revenue from the surcharge.
But the percentages are the same for the surcharge versus tax? They're both 10%?
Yes.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
both 10%. So if the state says no more surcharges, cities, that means we got to find $2 million somewhere. Actually, it's 2.7 because you've got gas at 229 and water at 460. So the only place where we don't have a surcharge, so we got taxes inside corporate limits, we got surcharges in unincorporated lake on our system, and then Fruitland Park becomes different because Fruitland Park, they have the ability to have a utility tax like we do because they're a municipal corporation. So we don't have I'm trying to sneeze and hold it back at the same time. We don't, there it is. Thank you. So in Fruitland Park, you've got the city bill, and then they put on their franchise fee and their utility tax, no surcharge. So in essence, wherever you don't have the ability to surcharge it, it's incorporated in another city. That's only a phenomenon in Fruitland Park. So altogether, transfers and surcharges brings in about $8 million. The other big revenue source, I just called it intergovernmental. It's that one line. It's the third big subcategory in your budget book. It's federal, state, local funding. It's $4.5 million. I think of that, it's state shared revenues is like $2 million. There was another $1 million, and then a lot of other little rinky-dinky charges. But so you take these three, taxes and fees, transfers and surcharges, shared revenues, 32 of your 40 million bucks. So that's where all your money's coming from. I know $8 million is a lot. But all of those are, for lack of better words, nickel and dime kind of user fees or this kind of fee or that. So, but this is what pays the bills, period. And the state legislature is got there, as Mr. Modlin, DC Modlin always used to say, because of the time he did in the Middle East, they got the camel's nose is in the tent. So they're watching us. So that's revenues. Do you want to, any questions on the revenue summary? Okay, let me jump to where are we spending it all? The general fund is personnel and police and fire. Police and fire is upwards of 60%, which I'm going to tell you is probably a little bit low. Probably that number in most cities is going to be upwards of 70 to 80% in that ballpark. But that's indicative probably where we're at on a staffing level with the police department. But it's historically been that way, and we've been doing our best to get it up. Where are we with the expenses? So kind of the three items that are driving the train are benefits and personnel for the general fund. So item number one, we have tentatively, and I put this item, and I've kind of delayed a little bit, ratification vote from you guys in terms of the collective bargaining agreements. So on the table, we have a union ratified Police Benevolence PBA Association agreement. We TA'd it a couple of weeks ago. The PBA membership in Leesburg approved it, I think unanimously. I don't think there were any no votes. And their benefit package increases our budget by $630,831. And what was it? It was a 6% increase for sworn officers, and it was pension changes that added a more lucrative drop program and increase a factor from 3 to 3.2% retroactively. And you see the respective costs up there on the chart. It is my opinion that the police benefits, specifically retirement benefits, have been below par for a long time. We have incrementally addressed it at one time or another. I know you guys recall, we've been to this well a number of times that one year it's pay, the next year it's benefits. Then we're back to pay. Now we're in a cycle of pay and benefits. When we go to the negotiating table with the PBA, they continually beat us up about this phenomena, and it is the PBA's opinion that our reason for our inability to get to the program number of 85 cops is because our benefits aren't good. Therefore, cops are going other places. Is that real or not real? I don't know. But what we do know is we continue to be below our mark. We set out a goal last year to increase the department by 12 positions or 15 positions, and we were at 68, trying to get to 85 with 73 program. This year,
We're at 68 now?
no, we were at 68. So last year we said 68, programmed 73, and we're trying to get to 85. Fast forward 365 days almost, we're at 66. So we went down 2, not up. And we probably second or third best entry pay in the region. But again, on the retirement side, we're at the bottom. So when we're at the bargaining table, we're reminded of that. And the first discussion we had was, you guys are over budgeting positions and there's all this extra money and blah, 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 and you're not bringing new people in because the retirement benefits stink. It's on the tapes if you want to hear it, okay? So I think there's a point there. We need to get our benefits up. And I think also in this day and age is what we're seeing is, a couple years ago, it was the scramble to get to 60,000 for entry level. Now we're at the scramble to get to 70,000. And for the police department, I think you do have some urban local competitors where we lose recruits to, in OPD and Orange SO. Those are probably the two right off the top where we're behind in benefits and pay. I don't know if we can ever pay OPD or Orange dollars, but that was where we're keeping up. But we saw too, as soon as we went to 60,500, we immediately saw Lady Lake and other local cities. So we're playing the leapfrog game. That's police. The same thing happens with fire. So as we see the PBAs and we see police organizations increase their salary to recruit people for service, then we have fire trying to keep pace with the police. Historically, I think what you see between that relationship is police pay typically better, benefits not quite as good. On the fire side, pay not quite as good, but benefits better. I don't know why that is. It is. But as we have worked, and not just we, but as municipal corporations in the region have worked to increase pay on the police side, the fire side comes right behind. And so this year, same phenomenon. And I think this year's phenomena too is also driven a little bit by no blame statement, but with the BOCC increasing significantly at Lake County entry-level fire pay, we are behind on that. And so the IFFF came to us with specific demands. I think their demand package was in excess of $750,000 increase. I think we started around $300,000 to $50,000 increase. And the TA agreement is a $532,000 increase. So we didn't quite split the baby. We split it, I guess, a little bit in our side. It was more expensive than we anticipated to TA. That is off for ratification vote in front of the IFFF. I think this week, if it's ratified, I will let you know. But the TA agreement calls for a 12% increase in pay. It also included When you do those double-digit increases, then you have compression. We address pay and compression. Then we do 2 pension modifications, bankable pension earnings for overtime. Ours was 0. If there's an industry standard, the 300 hours of OT counts towards retirement contributions. We TA'd at 100 hours. And we also added a drop program in their pension fund. But we also said, you guys need to contribute more. So we went from 6 to, didn't we go to 7.5%? It was 7? Or is it 7.5? I'll clarify that. But they also increased their contribution. Pretty much it is whatever the police department was paying. So that gave us back. So the net increase after they increased their contributions to match what other folks do, so now we're all apples to apples, the increase in their plan was $532,000. The other major modification that we're rolling out to you today, did I miss, am I jumping slide? I am jumping slide. So they went from 6.5 to 7.5. Yeah, they went from, we missed a 0.5. It's from 6.5 to 7.5. So they're doing the same contribution as the police department, 7.5%, which is more of a typical employee contribution on the public safety side of the house. To balance the budget at rollback, we had to freeze. We're proposing a freeze of 5 police positions. Each police positions is $89,580. Brady touched that up because the last time I looked at it was $83,500. And the one firefighter position. I'm going to try to be brief, but this is an important thing. Our budget still says 85 police officers, and it still says 55 positions. I am recommending that you keep that in the budget to give staff flexibility through the year to manage that. I don't think there's any way that we're going to get from 66 to 85 this fiscal year, even with the increase in benefits. So I'm not going to recommend to you to fund fully 85 positions because you're sitting on a lot of cash. Now, that's not my normal recommendation for you all, but here's what I think. You have enough cash that growth will hopefully fill in that gamble. It's a little bit of a gamble. I don't think it's a crazy one. So I think you go with that gamble. And we discussed it a little bit with the PBA, that phenomena, because typically when we don't fill the officers, where does that money go? It goes into your general fund reserve. And that's, I think, over the years why you see that general fund continuing to increase. So I think that there's a little bit of a play it by ear mentality. Watch the budget, watch how recruitment's going. Our guess is that by the time the fiscal year rolls back around, next year's growth will help us out so we can have our cake and eat it too. This is almost the exact same thing I said to you last year. It worked out, so I'm gonna recommend it to you again. And then I'm gonna hit this note one more time before the end of the presentation. And then the one firefighter position.
Matt, can you go back? I got one question. When would you recommend the increase in pay then for a police officer?
That will be October 1. So the collective bargaining agreements will hopefully be both fire and police will be on your desk next Monday, regular meeting. Assuming that you TA that, those increases and changes in benefits will be effective October 1. But we'll immediately market that in recruiting efforts, is my guess. Couple of other spending things I'd like to talk about. We talked about the same millage rate. Well, it's not in there. So the next one is where's the pension plan? It's here. Let me jump to some other expenses, and then I'm going to come back to I'm going to come back to millage rates and some options. Other major expenses in the general fund include Regular include 5% increase for what I'm going to call general employees. So that's everybody in the city, whether it's general fund or our enterprise fund, so electric, water, sewer, gas, public works, library, the city manager, finance director, everybody else is scheduled at a 5% increase, pending their evaluation results being satisfactory, including myself. So a 5% increase is what we're recommending to you. The next big one is a modification to the city's retirement plan for general employees. This is probably the other area in the city where our benefits are deficient compared to our municipal corporation counterparts. And it goes back to the general employees pension plan that we closed in 2008. So when we closed that plan in 2008, because of the world crash, the employees lost their pension fund, and we went from a defined benefit plan, also known as a pension, to a defined contribution plan, or a DC plan. Defined contribution plan is a flat percentage that goes into an individual's 401k. So that was kind of in that time frame. Many municipal corporations on the general employee side of the house left the pension plans, except for public safety, and went to DC plans. We did as well. The one thing that we haven't done was to made our we haven't made our DC plan more beneficial for our employees. The reason we haven't done that is because for the last almost 20 years, we've been solidifying the frozen GE pension fund. We are now at a point, and it started probably 2 or 3 fiscal years ago, where we funded it beyond what the actuary was saying. So now we're at a funding level of what, 90% of the GE plan, which means it's actually 98. So the GE plan is 98% funded, which is a significantly healthy number. I think there's only about 80 to 100 of our 550 employees, if you do the budget here, that about 180, I think 80 to 100 employees of everybody who is still a beneficiary of that. So what I'm saying is our liability on our pension, GE pension fund, continues to decrease, but we've been funding it at the same level. And I think it's gone from $1 million to $750,000. It sat there for a couple years. Then it went to $500,000. We stayed at $1 million funding it, so we're overfunding it by double. This year, the actuary went down from $500,000 to $250,000. That's when the light bulbs went on in our heads. We probably don't need to fund it that much. So what can we do with that $750,000? And really, the staff recommendation was, I have to be honest, this didn't come from me, because I would have been a lot cheaper. I would have gone, you can cut taxes with $750,000, we can do different projects. But honestly, staff beat me up, so the credit of this really if you accept this plan, really goes to Brandy, Rob, and Melissa. It's a deputy city manager, HR director, and budget director, because your city manager's cheap. So I don't get any of the credit. But the plan is take that $750,000 and fund the defined contribution plan for us. So what we see in the marketplace is a base level that the employer provides. We're 5%. So 5% of however you make, 0 to whatever, you get a base 5%, no questions asked, that gets funded into your DC plan. What we see in the marketplace is a 1-to-1 match up to a certain amount. So if an employee kicks in 1%, employer kicks in 1%. Our proposal to you is we can manage that delta, that $750,000 delta, we can manage 3%. So the plan would, the rollout to you in this format, and if you all say, yay, you like this concept, we'll be coming back to you with resolutions and the documents necessary to make it happen. Speak in more detail to you about then, but the program would be, we can fund up to 3%. So city kicks in 5, and we'll match 1-to-1 up to 3%. So if you put in 0.5%, 1/4%, 3%, up to 3% will match you. And we made that total, we made an assumption in this budget that whatever you kick in, that everybody's going to participate in this program. We don't think that's going to be the case. We think a lot of people will kick in. So we'll have hope. We may or may not have savings in out years, but we know we can cover that now, and then hopefully growth fills in for the perpetuity of the program. So you could receive upwards of 11% into your plan. So that would be 5 from the city automatic, and if the employee kicks in 3, they get the 3 match. So it's 5, 3, 3. So 11%. And so, as soon as you start hitting that 10% number, you start having the funding of a DC plan. That's potentially a nice benefit when you retire, assuming all the things work well, like the market makes money. That's the other big expense item in the budget.
Question, please. Can you go back? What is the number of employees in the old plan, in the GD?
The GE, there exists that I think about 80 to 100.
I'm showing 101 active.
So there's 101. So that means of the 550 employees that we're proposing, 101 have been with us since prior to September 2008. So a fifth of your workforce went through all of that.
And their plan will remain as is.
So that employee is still entitled to the frozen pension plan at their time of retirement.
So would they be able to consider to move to this one as well?
No, they are in this one.
Okay.
But so if you're
Okay.
if you're one of those 101 employees, you were hired on certain date up to September 30th, 2008. You, for those years of service, you get pension. For the years past October 1, 2008, you get DC. So those 101 employees have a combined plan. They have a pension plan that's frozen, where the benefit's not going to get any better than what it was on that day, and then that marries with the DC plan. And the reason that liability comes down is because folks die. We know exactly what the liability is going to be for the 101. So our ability to fund it decreases, and then as the market does, then we're kind of at the whims of the market a little. But it becomes actuarially sound because we know the liability. The next thing is the adding of employees. So the budget this year has a net 9 positions. So, and there's one little hiccup in there. It's not a hiccup, but you miss it if you don't look for it. So I want to bring it to your immediate attention. Last year, we added the deputy city manager position by shuffling the deck. One of the things the deputy city manager immediately said was, we don't have enough people in procurement. I guess I knew that was coming. Mike Thornton always complained about it. And we had it at certain levels. We reduced it. But one of the issues we do have a procurement process issues. We don't have enough qualified buyers processing bids, and we need another body. So the deputy city manager, I call it a transfer. So instead of being in the procurement division of finance, he got moved over into the city manager budget. So you'll see that. So I'm not going to call that a new position because we used existing people at that time. It's not a new position, so it's a transfer. So here are the new positions. 4 utility service techs, which you've previously approved because we're phasing out of the contract thing into reading meters and these are water meters for water and gas for ourselves. And then we close out the deputy finance director position. Where's Paul? There's Paul. Paul believes we can go without this for now. I'm sure we may revisit this in other fiscal years, but for fiscal year 26, we're proposing to close that out. So there's 3 positions. The new procurement manager goes hand in hand with the transfer of the deputy city manager. So where we go with that is probably a promotion for our senior buyer to the procurement manager, and then bringing in another senior buyer is how Brandy did the budget. A police service aide funded with the school zone camera money, and so the police service aide will hopefully help us with parking tickets, camera zone, school zone camera stuff, going through all that. A forensic digital evidence tech, also at the police department. So civilian position increases. And then on the gas, more administrative help, a gas service manager, and the cathodic CP is cathodic protection foreman. We just finished off our public service commission evaluation. We basically got a good review, but they did hit us up a little bit on our cathodic protection. And essentially where we're at on cathodic protection is we haven't caught up with older experienced folks who've retired. And so we end up kind of with a stack of cathodic protection SOP to do that we haven't been as fast enough. I'm not saying the system's unsafe, but it did get, but we need help there. Cathodic protection is really the heartbeat of gas services. So you put all those positions together. Those are the 9 new positions in the city. That's the general fund. A, stop for questions on that, or B, let me hit you with 2 other topics real quick. 2 other topics real quick. I wanted to hit you with Bike Fest numbers because Bike Fest hits us in the general fund, in the recreation part. I think I covered it. I did. No, that's at the end.
Okay, you did.
Okay, so Bike Fest recap. Long story short, all the money in, all the money out. We lost 69,000. However, we gave out, was that 54? 54 and 50. So $54,000 to civic organizations, which is the heartbeat of why we do Bike Fest, right? It's an opportunity to bring people into the community, help local businesses, then we take those profits and we give it to our civic organizations. So we do that 2 ways. It's a fundraiser for the chamber because the chamber manages it for us, and we pay them 50 grand for it. And then we also pay another 54,000. So our loss is almost directly correlates with what we're paying other people to do. Long story short, we've done this for 2 years. I think last year we lost 75,000. This year we lost 69,000, 70 grand. If we lost money last year with this model, I'm going to safely say that we're going to lose money every year. How are we absorbing this loss? When the partnership closed its doors and threw the keys on the table and we accepted it, they gave us $257,000 in cash. We put that in a special fund. So this loss is coming from that, and you have now a 2-year balance. We lost 72,000 last year, 69 this year. We've got 114 left. That looks like about one more trick to me. So you don't have to change the plan for 26, but after 26, you're going to need to change the plan. And the plan, I think, includes, do we want to look at an outside vendor for alcohol? Because the alcohol is really what's driving the bus on this. And we looked at that model, I think both years, and we opted to stay with the chamber model for the reasons that we're keeping the money local. But I think, and I'm not going to ask you for a decision this year because the budget, or I'm not going to ask you for a decision tonight. But I wanted to set the stage because probably sometime in July or August, we need to revisit this formally with direction from you on change or stay the course. So change the course is, coming, or stay is, you got one more trick.
And you'll present us those numbers at the meeting for both
These are
options,
the numbers.
for both options.
Yes.
Okay.
When we have this formally for y'all, we'll show you what it could look like, and we'll show you variance.
Thank you.
Okay?
Why do you recommend one more time with the
'Cause you still got
114?
114,000.
I know, with 114.
Yeah.
Why not change now?
Well, you can. I'm saying we have that discussion. You can change now, and then the 114 will just go into a Bike Fest stash and sit on it or spin or what. But so I'm saying it's not an imminent. You don't have you got a hole in the bucket, but the bucket ain't empty.
Gotcha.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to hit you with is civic funding, because this is maybe shades of what the next program for Bike Fest looks like. Anyway, if you can change numbers around. So this is where we're at. This is what we came up with last year. is similar from last year. So Leesburg, the Art Center, we provided $10,670. The Yellow Jacket Booster Club, $5,000. The CDC, and this is the Black Heritage Festival. So when they do their Black Heritage, it's not their funding. And, excuse me, their agreement is this is our contribution for the Black Heritage Festival. So they have to spend it on that. So I don't know if you want to consider that CDC funding or an event funding. I would suggest to you that this is event funding, not funding for the CDC. And then the cemetery is obviously, so $161,000. Again, that money is a transfer out of solid waste. It used to be gas. We stuck it over the solid waste. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. The other request in there that came to me a little bit late, but nonetheless, it's here for your consideration. The Art Center lost funding from the state. They are requesting $30,000 in funding instead of $10,670.
Cemeteries, what was last year?
Cemetery was the same. Now, let me throw that bit of bad news at you too. The cemetery has already been in my office 2 or 3 times saying that 161 is not enough. At this stage with the cemetery, I'll say this out loud publicly, if we need to continue funding the cemetery at that level, you guys might want to direct me to give you a number to figure out how much is it going to cost for us to just take care of it. You know, it's going to be something. I don't think Travis or Cliff have the personnel, but I think we can crack that nut, you know, one way or another. And if you're telling me put the pencil to it, I will do it. I haven't done it to date. And really, the issue is, on a higher level, the issue is going to be twofold. It's going to be sale and tracking of cemetery lots and niches, which I would go directly to Andy's office, because that was my experience in the past. Sorry, this is the first time Andy's here. I heard this. This is really an effective method. Or somewhere in City Hall, we have the existing staff that we can probably sell niches and track burial spots. The other side is maintenance. This is how we did it in Sebastian. It was a system that worked pretty seamlessly. So if you want me to start cranking numbers, my guess, my knee-jerk reaction when I got these requests is you guys are going to look at me like you're looking at me now, which tells me I need to start crunching some numbers on what would this look like internally. But I would say for this year, we'd probably fund it at that level one more time. And then, you know, this may be something we change midstream. But I would move forward with this assumption. And then if you give me the order to start crunching numbers so we figure this out, because the cemetery folks will be back to me and very, very shortly. Brandy, there was one last slide of options. There was one last slide of options that I wanted to show you in the general fund. And where is it? That one. So I got that one out of order. I don't think I stuck it in there wrong, but I could have. Before I close it out, I know I've talked here for an hour and 3 minutes, so I'll be brief, but I think this is an important part of the overall summary of the general fund. I think you have options, and there's derivatives to every option, but I think you have 3 primary options. Option number 1, do the budget as we proposed. That freezes 5 positions, that gets you a rollback rate. It's pretty much exactly what's before you. It's pretty much SOP, and as I've discussed tonight. Option number 2, go with the millage rate of 3.4752, the same millage rate, the tax increase. So what do you do with that $425,000? You unfreeze the public safety positions. I think that's an obvious choice, but I'm going to tell you number 2 is not an option. Don't do that, because I think you manage those freezed positions. And if I can't stress enough, and if I haven't done it in the presentation, let me do it now. I am totally not concerned about freeze of public safety positions. This does not mean we have less public safety. This does not people will remain unsafe. This means that we haven't got to the increased levels that we wanted to get to for a host of different reasons. And primarily it's because we haven't been able to recruit new police officers, and I think that's a whole nother conversation. But I think it's rooted in the fundamental change that we're making to the retirement process. And we have the cash to manipulate during the fiscal year. If Chief Iozzi gets on a hiring streak and he starts getting people in, and we're in March and he's got 6, 8 new officers, and we've saved money for those 6 months, I'm gonna say, Joe, go get 85. So I really think we can manage it the way we've managed it. It's short funded, I got it, but we've got the cash and new growth coming around the corner that makes that a good gamble. So option number 2 is an option, but I don't think it's a good one, because the other weakness in the budget is these things. If you go to the same millage rate, now you got $428,000 to spend in other places. I don't want to sound like we're spending crazy money here. It's $500,000 of $40 million, so it's not a lot, but it's a little. The tax increase isn't crazy, but it is a tax increase. But there's some things that are pretty impactful that I think you can do with that $430,000. And I received a couple of emails and texts from y'all during the course of the year where this is where you can spend that money, because on the budget room floor, there's things that we cut to give you option number 1. And so now this is an opportunity to go back and look at those. So what are those things? Keep the public safety freezes in because of all the reasons I've discussed. So with the 428, you can shift civic funding to the general fund. So how would you shift civic funding to the general fund? Instead of taking it from solid waste, spend that $200,000 out of this. Just fund it out of the general fund. And that might make you even a little more frugal on what we do civic funding with. Or if we find other options for civic funding, like if we go private sector side and we have monies to shift around, that could be a whole net neutral thing. Beautification. Mayor Reisman has hit me up a couple of times now on creating a budget for the Keep America Beautiful stuff and doing more beautification things. Maybe there's some code enforcement stuff in there, getting a couple more people to get after code enforcement, parking, those type of things. Iozzi asked for 2 police techs. I put 1 in the budget, so that's how we would tackle that. Commissioner Berry has been after all of us on a home grant to cover everything in the city. So the areas of the home grant that we haven't been able to cover is basically everything outside. Carver Heights CRA, although when we talk about CRAs on Thursday, we will be recommending a little piece of the 44127 CRA to do a little segment in that, in kind of north and around John L. Johnson Park, but there's not a lot of homes in there. I'm not saying they don't need it, but I'm just saying it's not a big impact. So you've got money there if you want to spend it on the home grant citywide. We cut $100,000 probably respectively from Public Works and Recreation, and those are all the little things that you text me about, like this looks ugly, can you fix it? And so that's, so remember, every time you do that, Cliff gets a lot of credit because he's Johnny on the spot and he goes and fixes it. But there is the side effect of Fred Flintstone and the carpet. You guys, there's a little rumpet in the carpet when we got to stop and go do, and that's because less people, different monies, and we're really squeezed tight. I think the city looks good, but there is room for improvement. So, and these are the little shifts of when we go to roll back, when we do these things, fighting all them, these are the things that get cut. So here's $428,000 to stick it back in there so we don't have to be, maybe we can upgrade from Milwaukee's Best to Bud Light, I don't think we get champagne yet, but there's a couple things that we can do. And then also, so I put in, there's a couple CIPs that we have in the budget when we put this out that we put in DST, but you can save DST for other capital projects. And kind of 2 good general fund capital improvement projects would be, there's 2 major requests in there. The gym flooring, I think, was about $125,000. at 200. The gym flooring, it looks horrible. I think it's the original gym floor. It needs changed out. It's not representative of our community. And Dusty over at the library is on me about the library carpet. The library carpet is $350. I know that's a lot of carpeting, but that's a lot of books and a lot of shelvings and a lot of things that need to get moved. So those could be two big CIPs. If you knock those into general revenue CIPs, then you've got that 250 and 150. What's that at? Is that 500? So so there's $550,000 that then over in the DST fund can be spent on something else. With that, that's my summary. Any questions on the summary?
Any questions for Al?
And some of these things, if you don't have questions, if you want, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 regular meetings. If you want me to put a little budget comment review section in regular meetings just to kind of review and keep you updated like we've done in past years, we can do that so you guys can mull this over. But the takeaways are, I think we've got a good general fund proposal. I think you've got good options, and the DR 420 really needs to go out at 3.47. If you don't send the DR 420, the DR 420 out at the 3.4752 mils, you throw this screen away and do number 1.
I have a question, please. For the shift to civic funding, how do we determine the dollar amount for general funding? I mean, do we have a limit that we could say?
It'd be whatever you want, whatever you could afford, but the civic funding number right now is 168, or no, 180. I just showed it to you. That's the civic, 181. So that number you would just bring over into the general fund and stick it in miscellaneous or what. That would just.
It's going to be 20 more if we go with the art.
Yes, if you go with, so it'd be 200 if you give the Arts Center its full request.
And then I just have a question as far as the policing. I'm curious, what's the next city, I guess, if we're offering now 60 for.
We're higher than that now.
60,
We're
67?
This CBA puts us to 65?
We'll be at 65 with the CBA.
October 1. October 1 will be 65.
So what is our next city that's like right below us? That's not paying quite as much as us?
Lady Lake is over us, and I think
Probably the
a
sheriff.
couple of them are in the process, like we.
Maybe the sheriff, Tavares, but there's look, what the marketplace is right now is a mad dash to 70. What's OPD?
67-ish.
Yeah, so everybody's kind of moving to that 70 number.
I was just trying to see where we could do some recruiting.
I know, from my perspective, it seems like this is a never-ending problem that I think there's been a couple of reprieves. We got there and we breathed for a year or two, and then we're back doing it again. So it seems like every third year, we've got a big jump in police pay.
And can I just add for Commissioner, with the 65, Chief Iozzi also has room for bringing seasoned officers, that they promote that in their recruiting, that they can bring them in at a higher rate.
Okay.
And they do promote that in their recruiting too.
And with the increase of the retirement, that's another
We
plus
hope
point.
that will be a tool to help us.
Another plus.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get to 85 this year, or this year being fiscal year 26, but hopefully we get a lot closer to that.
That'll help with retention also.
Any other commission comments?
Are you looking for any direction right now on anything we talked about so far? I'll just go ahead and comment. I think you've done a great job on it.
Yeah.
I think when I see our millage rate at the bottom of the list, I have no problem holding the rate. If you're looking for input on the funding, I'll support the Arts Center request. We bought that building downtown. I don't think I'm going to abandon them over $20,000.
I don't support the increase to the arts.
I expected that. That's fine. I don't know where the other commissioners are.
Here's
May I ask why, Jay? Why do you feel this way?
You already give a free building and you're already paying utilities, I mean, how much, and you're already giving them money every year, I mean, how much more are you gonna give the Center of the Arts? I mean, you're providing free utilities and free rent, and you're already contributing money. I mean, I think enough's enough. I mean, they can maybe do some stuff on their own to generate money if they need more, but how much more are you gonna give this organization?
Well, they do the generation, I mean, being on the board, I know pretty much what the plan is, and there is fundraising, but
Okay,
it's
well
still
then-
not enough.
Well, I mean, then maybe they need to cut back or something, but I just don't know how much more the city should continue to contribute to the Arts Center. I mean, most organizations would be very happy with giving them a free rent and paying their utilities and still giving them some cash every year. I mean, I just think they're asking for too much.
Based on, I mean, I'm really wanting to have a conversation. I'm not trying to
Sure,
go
I understand.
back and forth. So
Yes.
based on, what are you basing it from prior years?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it's an increase from what they've been getting. I don't understand why they need more. Like I said, I think the city already is more than generous with what their package, if you want to call that, what they've been getting for years.
But they've lost funding. That's the whole
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
issue.
comment on. I
They
talked-
lost I
State
think it was
funding.
25, the state funding's gone. So they no longer have the same
Well, I mean,
dollar amount in which you're working from.
I understand that, but I don't know it's the city's responsibility to make up the difference that the state pulled their funding.
Well, we do arts for children. We pull in Beacon.
No, I'm not
We
putting.
bring in- I mean,
I'm not
telling
putting.
you
I'm not
the
putting them down on what,
participation.
and not on their cause of what they do. I mean, no, I'm not making light of that. I just think there's only so much taxpayer money we should give this organization. I mean, we've got many organizations we don't give anything to.
True.
So.
But this has been funded for years.
Well, and I'm fine with keeping it at the current rate and the current conditions. That, I mean, we've been providing them free rent, if you will, for years, and for paying their utilities, and still contributing money to them. I just don't think we need to increase what we've already been giving them for years.
I spoke with Amanda briefly this week about this request, and when she explained to me that they lost the $25,000, how she explained to me was they lost the $25,000 from the state. This is the Band-Aid to patch that up, and they are going to focus. It's a one-time request. I mean, yeah, I can't guarantee they won't need more help than $10,000 next year, but yeah, their plan is we give them this money and it gets them through this fiscal year while they focus on other fundraising efforts and trying to close that gap themselves. I mean, I understand and respect your comments. I'm just saying I'll support it. Was there any other items here you needed input on tonight?
Well, here's where I was going to go to sum it up. So I don't know how much you guys want to debate back and forth. I'm completely up to you. But here's from your facial expressions, the few comments that there were. Here would be my suggestion for you. Some of this can sit and simmer, and as we move forward, I'm going to be back to you. It's going to be incremental. So call me. Watch your. We'll be in communique from now till the adoption in September. But these things are going to be coming to you incrementally. So the next one, Monday, the 14th, you'll have three big items on the agenda. You're going to have this 2 CBAs agreement. I'm assuming that IFF ratifies. So you're going to have the PBA on there for sure, and you're going to have the IFF CBAs to ratify. If you guys ratify that, you've locked yourself into those increases we've talked about. So that's got to get in the soup. Also, Monday is going to be the DR 420. I will have that on consent agenda for expediency. It will be on there at the at the current millage rate level. If you want to lock yourselves into a tax cut or rollback, pull that from consent and have this debate Monday. If you don't pull it from consent, that doesn't mean it's a done deal. We can still talk about it in August, and then we can still talk about it in September when we do the hearings. So you've got up until September, whatever you want me to do as far as bring it on to you, talk about it in July, talk about it in August. You will have the budget hearings where you can debate it in September. So you've got all the way till September to cut that. So those are the immediate things. And I'm going to call you guys out. I'm not trying to Mayor, you've been on me about beautification issues and that kind of stuff. So you need to be on your counterparts here up into those budget workshops to get the extra money. It's that 428. So I know that's kind of your project. So as we move through, and it's August 1, we'll have updated numbers. September 1, we'll have updated numbers. Under my matters and regular meetings, I'll just put on a budget update to solicit your input as we move forward. Commissioner Barry, you've been on me, you've been on the body about getting the home grant into it. So really, that's where I'm going to leave it up to you guys to debate this in the 8 opportunities between now and September where you fight for those things that you want. And as you have those discussions, you're going to be locking yourself in. Really, the most important one are those CBAs and the DR 420. So if you pass the DR 420 at 3.4 on Monday, yeah, we're going to need to come back. We're going to need to talk about where we put the 428. But if you guys on Monday pull it from the consent and you knock it down to the 3.3, the rollback number, debate's done. You got to do number 1. Then we might as well not talk about anything else for the summer because you're locked in. So this is what you got. What you got. That's the bare bones. That's the bare bones general fund budget. And you've got two and a half months to talk about maybe what you wouldn't want to do with an extra 428. And so that will give you opportunity, and we'll weave those things in through discussions that will come up based on our agenda. So to answer your question, unless you all want to continue to talk tonight, I think we've got pretty clear direction.
I was just being respectful to the Center for the Arts because, they're here. So I didn't know how the commission felt on that. I feel like they deserve, at least an indication or signal from the commission, where we're at. I mean, I support it.
And I was just asking to just have a discussion with Jay, so where we can talk. So, I mean, anyone else's thoughts, or we just not even consider it?
I'm fine based off the state funding, and they're going to reapply for the state funding next year. And if they get it, we can reevaluate this, and if we're going to reevaluate next year anyways. So.
And I will specifically, even if it's up at the budget work, I'll specifically ask you about arts again come September. I know that leaves them a little bit in flux, but that, I don't think, look, I don't want to be, I know Amanda's sitting right there, but that's not a city issue. That's a them issue. You've got other issues you've got to manage, and you'll get to it when you get to it. So in that regard, it will become, do you want to put it back into and keep it in solid waste? So solid waste is getting a little tight, or would you want to put that extra 20 out of the 428? We're going to be having other discussions. Like we're going to be discussing the Bike Fest thing. So that might be opportunity that will be on your agenda. So that's going to settle the civic funding question, because as we broke into those numbers, we'll have a discussion. Man, if we go outsource on alcohol, it makes the Bike Fest issue has multiple layers. It has the chamber payment, it has the civic funding payment, it has the insurance payment. Now, so if we change and we go outsource, and I'll bring Travis in, and Travis will pitch kind of the different concepts because he's the expert in those numbers. But if you go to where you outsource alcohol sales, you're probably going to take a little bit of hit in some of your sponsorship monies, but you're really going to lower your overhead costs in insurance and purchase of alcohol, and you're going to know you're going to get pretty close to X, and then you can coordinate that. So that might be then it's going to turn the negative Bike Fest numbers into a profit center, and then whatever that profit center is, then you go back in and fund civic funding in some form or fashion. You'll know number-ish on what you can do later. So it might be, so it could be something where this year you change the composite of Bike Fest for 26, but you don't change the budget because specific funding is coming from solid waste. But then in this fiscal year, if you change the composite of how we do Bike Fest, you'll know what that number is for civic funding for 27, right? So, and we'll have all those discussions. I don't want to keep beating the horse, but the lingering questions that you have this evening, we will be talking about. But I think we have pretty good direction on where you go.
All right.
No, I guess I was trying to give Center for the Arts some kind of indication. I don't think it's really a vote, but just some idea. I hate for them to have to hang out here for a month or two, wondering if they're going to get money from the city or not. That's my
You
point.
can always call the vote, Commissioner.
I guess
I mean, if you want to do a Paul Straw now,
Okay.
you could do that now.
one or the other.
Indication.
I'm looking at my
That was
fellow
fine.
commissioners. I hear fine.
I'm open to wait. I just wanted to get my feel for invitation.
I'm for the funding for the arts as long as the millage rate, Okay, so if we roll back the rate, then
Yeah.
not going to be any
Yeah,
funding.
and I'll go ahead and go on the record. I'm going to support the same rate, 3.475
I
being
would
the,
say that too.
when you throw Montbird out with the lowest.
Right.
And I mean, I wish we could deliver a tax cut, but it's impressive that what we've done at the lowest millage rate in the county by
Right.
far. And one more request. Can I get a new chair?
They're coming. Pam,
No, this thing, I have to brush myself off. All the leather keeps coming. Just like,
I know you got
Is the procurement department getting
It,
that?
it is. They're,
look a lot like what you're sitting right now.
this one's actually shedding, and I'm afraid it's going to fall over backwards.
they're on the way.
May I ask I'm sorry, can I flip back to Bike Fest? I have a question in reference to insurance. If outside, insurance will change based on outside vending, that's not included with the outside vendor? I mean, that's-
No, so, no, let me answer I won't. Insurance, we bring in an additional insurance coverage because we're specifically selling alcohol.
Right. But wouldn't that go away?
If we do outside source, we will have the vendor hold us harmless, meaning if you drink too much because you bought it from Acme outsourced company and then you crash into the telephone pole, then we're going to say you can't sue the city, you got to sue Acme, and they will hold us harmless. As long as that company holds us harmless, which is typically the case, then there won't be the need for the additional insurance that we
That's what I'm
purchased.
trying
Last year we purchased it for $48,000. This year I think we got it for $25,000.
Oh,
The 26.
Without getting too bogged down in those numbers, we give the chamber $50,000. I will give it to them. We pay them a fee to help. But we also deleted, help me out, I believe, all the other, we were making a lot of miscellaneous contributions over the year.
When
like
we went
10,
to
12,
pay-
15,000.
yes,
So
and
I just
that
wanted to
goes back
clarify
to-
there is a net there.
Yeah, that
a
goes
net
back
difference.
to that number. That list used to be a whole lot longer. I don't remember, what did it used to be?
That was
Yeah.
partnership.
Was
In
it?
23, we were at 70,215 outside of the cemetery.
Outside, yeah. So and the cemetery was low. So it's like the number's always been about 180 to 200. So what's happened is as we've trimmed out other groups, the money shifted down to the cemeteries. So the outside groups that you're funding have gone from probably a list of
Yeah, there was quite a few.
8 to 10 to 3.
Brandy, do you have numbers on the cemetery for what it was 3 or 4 years
Yes, I
ago?
do. So the cemeteries started at 87.
So it's
600.
doubled,
When was it 87, Ms.
In 2010,
Yeah.
and then it stayed pretty good until we hit
Like 2021 is when,
23. They went to 161, and in
Okay.
22 they were at 111.
Do they provide a budget of what that money goes towards?
They do.
What's their top? Just mowing and stuff?
I don't know.
That's okay.
I have it.
That's fine.
the big jump was equipment. They had to
It
purchase
seems to
some
me
new
there was.
equipment.
It seems to me there were 2 or 3 jumps
COVID money.
in it.
They wanted
We
COVID
shared
money.
COVID money with them. We gave them some used
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah, for equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big jump.
I think their utility bill was going on for a while.
Yeah.
All right. Any other?
Will you send this out, or will you send it?
I sent it to the clerk, but I will. Andy, will you send it out to the commission? So Andy will send it out to you. The PowerPoint should send it out to you.
Any other questions? Thank you to our city manager and all of our staff, night one, and we will see you all on Thursday.
Yeah, but before you,
Oh,
I don't want to prolong it,
No.
but so when you see this, we didn't go through step by step on each of these little department stuff, but we captured the highlights. So If any of you guys have questions on the individual departments, just please call me. But most everything in there is, we summarized, and it's pretty much verbatim of last year. And we continue to pay people and buy paper,
One last question.
Yes, sir.
In the, trying to think what it was. It was the, you had Public Works and Recreation under that 428 number, to spend. Was there anything particular in that?
We cut them landscaping monies and plant monies
Okay,
and
I was just
different
curious.
equipment.
We
and-
touched on most of the items
You know,
underneath it. I
so
just,
Their budgets were higher and we went.
okay.
So when look, I mean, for lack of
That's
better
fine,
words, they're
that's fine.
arbitrary cuts. So department heads go through their detailed spending, they put it in budget format, we come through it. When we see little blips up or down, so by the time it gets to my desk, I want your numbers to be streamlined, and I don't care what you're spending it on. And if you're a little high somewhere and you don't give me a good explanation, we argue about it in the office. And if you haven't sold me, I'm not going to come and try to sell you, so I'll just cut it. And there's probably about 200 grand, 100 in each Public Works and Recreation that I thought needed to be in there first swing because it was different, maintenance for this, maintenance for that. And then when we got into the CBA discussions, I was like, we gotta pay the police and fire folks. So that took precedence. So I robbed Peter to pay Paul. But now you got the 425. So now we can give Cliff, and potentially you can give Cliff and Travis some money back.
Well, thanks again to staff, and if we're all done, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.